Okay, welcome to this video on options. We're talking about this whole emo car sequence. This is where we are right now. We are at the options phase. So up to this point, there's been an event, a situation. We now attached, hopefully, an empowering meaning to that event. Now it's time to start laying out our options. Okay, and here I'm going to just give you the answer right now. Here's the take-home message from this. Make sure that your options are more than one. When it's more than one, you're going to find that you're going to have so much more power. When you have something other than faced with just like a binary decision, like you think it's only this, it's either yes or no for this one option. No, what you want is going to be more than one option, multiple options in fact. And this is what you can finally do to kind of start getting the idea of moving forward, is to write it out. I sit down sometimes with my notebook and I just am writing away on this situation, and it really helps start to develop my thinking around this idea. Instead of just being stuck in my head about it, you can write it out, physically write it out. I mean, I guess you could type it on your computer, but there's something about pen and paper that makes it so much easier. And here's the different things that you can do when you're doing this. I just talked about a second ago, journaling. That's a big one. Again, you just have a notebook. I carry mine with me pretty much wherever I go. And so there's when I can write stuff out. Thinking time. Keith Cunningham out in Austin, he has this program called the 4-Day MBA. It's a really, really good program. And he talked about the importance of thinking time. It's not where you sit down and try to just meditate and have your mind go blank. I've tried the meditation thing. And for me, it just didn't work. But I can tell you what does work is this. It's where you sit with one question in your mind, a question about your business or a question about the situation that you're facing. And you just start thinking of all the different possible ways you could handle this situation. Again, if you just sit there and think about one thing and just be in a quiet place and write it out, ideas are just going to come to you on how you could do this. It can be very creative. And when you get done writing it all out, you're going to maybe find that your options are much more than what you thought going into it. Of course, you can always write out a pros and cons list. That's easy. Or if it's something that's mathematical in nature, then you can use a spreadsheet. I use that all the time to kind of boil the numbers down so I can make at least a numbers-based decision based upon some real facts, other than just trying to do some quick math in my head. But when you're going through all this, the answers, of course, is what you're going for, but it's going to be the questions. That's where the real value is, because as you start working through these different options, different questions are going to pop into your head when you're going through this, and it's those questions that are going to spur you to think deeper into the situation. Let me give you a quick story about somebody who was having to make some decisions. From Xerox, this lady Ann Mulcahy. Now, when she came in 2001, Xerox was on the verge of bankruptcy. Think about that. A really big company filled with, I'm sure, lots of MBAs and people who really knew their stuff, engineers, all these different people working at this company, yet for whatever reason, they were not profitable. They were actually on the verge of bankruptcy. And so she came in and to list out all the different things that, all the different options that were available to her. Cutting costs. How about just focusing on the core business like copiers and printers, or diversifying into different technologies? Okay, so she had multiple options to pick from. When it's all said and done, she chose cutting costs and transitioning from a copier company into a document solutions provider. So even though I said multiple options, you could come up with one final decision on where you're going to go with it. It doesn't have to just be like one of the three. You can actually do a combination, but when it's all said and done, you'll have some sort of decisive decision when it's all taken care of, that you will move forward with something that makes sense. So, Ann Mulcahy, tough decision that had to be made out of a couple different options. Now, here's what you do when it involves another person, specifically conflict with another person. Ways you can kind of journal about this. Ask yourself these three questions. What is it that you want for yourself? Just when it's all said and done, you're dealing with this individual or even with a group of people. What do you want for yourself? And after you write that all out, then ask yourself, well, what do I want for the other person? Regardless of what your emotions might be for that person, in the long run, what would you want for that individual? And then, what would you want for the both of y'all? When it's all said and done, again, what would be a good option or a set of options that you could pick from that would be good for all three of these questions when put together? Now, when you are putting together your options, there's going to be some emotional risks in creating them. Remember, when we're going through this whole emo car sequence, at the very beginning I said each one of these steps is going to involve some sort of emotion. And so when you're doing this, when you're putting together these ideas, be on guard against wallowing in these feelings of guilt, sadness, anger, just to list 3 of many different types of emotions. Don't start thinking, well, it's impossible. Nothing can be done. Don't throw up your hands and think like this is an impossible situation. Nothing is ever impossible. There's a creative way to work through a situation. Also, if you're starting to concern yourself, well, if I do this, then this person's going to be upset or that person's going to be upset. Yeah, that might be the case, but you can't let the fear of that get in the way of you making the most optimal decision for you and, again, for all the stakeholders that are involved. And then also, of course, embarrassment. Sometimes we find ourselves in a situation that we got ourselves into. And so the idea of having to make a decision to correct it can be embarrassing. And that embarrassment might allow us to maybe steer away from it because we want to help save face, when really what we need to do is face the music and make the change that's going to be putting us back on the right track. Now, Albert Einstein, he said we cannot solve problems at the same level of thinking in which those problems were created. So what that means is that you got yourself into a problem, you're going to have to change your way of thinking. So you're going to have to be open to something new. Again, go all the way back to the very beginning when we attached meaning. Remember, those were those beliefs that we had. Those beliefs are going to help guide the meaning, of course, but also beliefs are going to influence the options that we come up with. Things that we think are legitimate options and things that we think are not so great. And so being open to something new, being able to challenge your beliefs will then open the door for more options for you to pick from. Again, the answer here is more than one. Come up with at least more than one option, because when you do that, the end result is you're going to feel more powerful. See, if you only have just one option, you're going to feel almost like a victim, like this is where I'm up against, like there's nothing for me to do. But when you have more than one option, that puts you in a state of feeling more powerful, and you're going to come up with a better end result. So this is where we are in the sequence. Again, we go through all of these. The very first one was asking, where's the opportunity here? Now we're at the options phase, and this is, just know that the answer to that is more than one. Pick more than one, or at least have more than one option available to pick from. Next, we're going to talk about choosing the right option.